Hi everyone. So, like yesterday, someone asked me if I could do a tutorial on certain things that I have in my videos. I'm gonna put their channel up onto the screen so like you guys can go check out their stuff. But the things that they asked for in like the tutorial are body bases, eye adjustments. I just decided to like do the whole face or whatever. Scars, and then blood and thumbnails. So this video is like a tutorial on how I do those things. Starting with body bases, I typically use these 3 mocha body bases that I found off of a tutorial that she did on how she does her characters. I'll show them and the codes that I got for them. But yeah, I basically use those in order to make my characters. Sometimes I use the regular adjustments that, it comes with. Other times I do tweak the adjustments a little so they more so fit when I'm trying to go for a character, or just so then they're like fitting a certain body type that I want to give a character. The main examples that I can think of for this one are Suki, Asper, and June. For Suki and Asper, I've used the second body base for the both of them, but both of their adjustments are tweaked a little, or they're different from the original ones used. So, like, basically, I just used the base as, like, I guess the stepping stone or whatever, and then I changed it from there. With June's, I used the first body base for him, and then I changed it more so to what I wanted it to look like. So, if anything, with the body bases, I used those from time to time, like the regular adjustments, but most of the time I do tweak them to be a little different than like what was given. Moving on to the face, for the eye adjustments, I typically have it within the range of 0 to -8. Now this does depend on the character, because not every character is going to have like the same eye shape. So this does ultimately depend on the type of eyes that you choose, and also on what the look you're trying to go for your character is. So it's not like, hey, you have to have it like this. It's just the range that I usually have my eye adjustments in. For length, the usual eye adjustments that I have is within the range of 0.25 to 0.95. Some characters that I have, they have slightly smaller eyes, so that's why the range is so big. That's the range that I personally have it for. And then with width, I either have it at the default or I have it up to 1.25. Now this also depends on what type of eye you use, because some eyes that are given don't look good if they're like expanded in terms of width. And it's also up to what look you're going for the character. Now, things like rotation, that does depend on what the look you're going for the character is, but it also can depend on age. Usually what I do with characters that are older, I do give them slightly slanted eyes or whatever, because like I guess it shows their age more. For children, I guess that would be like from the ages under 13 or whatever. I do tend to give them bigger eyes since, they're children, so it makes them more youthful. So I give them bigger eyes, like more shine to them, I guess you can say. For the pupils and irises, I make them bigger than like what is given to you after you adjust the like regular eye or whatever. I do make them a little bit bigger, usually by like 2 or 3 times, or until I think it looks good. For the eye highlights, which is like inner and outer ones, for the inner ones, that depends on the character. So, like, if you don't want them to have the shine, if you do, usually when they do have the eye, like the inner eye highlight to them, I make it, like, smaller in, like, length or whatever. That way it fits easily into the, like, white part of the eye and isn't blatantly shoved in your face, because I don't really like how that looks. And for the outer eye highlights, that depends on the eye shape after you're done adjusting it, and also on what other added facial features you have onto the character. Because if you have, like, you know, more than 4 or whatever thing, you won't be able to add it. So there's that. Then another thing with the eyes is that depending on the placement, the eyebrows go, like, about one space above it, I would say. Basically, the lower you put your eyes, the lower the eyebrows go. The higher you put the eyes, the higher the eyebrows go. If anything, you want to keep the eyebrows semi-close to the eyes, like make sure there's a small gap in between them. This is usually in, like, a resting face, not really when they're showing expressions or whatever. Then for the overall outline of the eye, I don't really like when it looks chunky, so I personally always have it at 30%. For the mouth and lips, starting with the mouth, I always have the placements on a 1-to-1 scale, so the X point is 1 and the Y point is 1. I also have that for every character. Then, in terms of width, they range from 1.4 to 1.7. Then length is 0.4 to 0.8. Some notes that I have is that the inside of the mouth is usually a darker shade of red. It's not really a pink sort of color like they have for the default, but the tongue, it's still a dark red, but it's lighter than what the inside of the mouth would be. And then the overall outline of the mouth is usually a darker shade of the skin tone color that you choose. For lips, I use 192 in the other section for that, like, lip indent, and then the, like, lip highlight thing. I don't really know what it's called, but yeah, I use those two for that part of the lips. Both of them don't really have a set size, if anything, when it comes to the lip highlight. I make that one smaller than whatever I made, like whatever size I made the lip indent, because, like, it's a highlight, it's not really supposed to be that big. Then for, like, the lower lips, I don't usually actually make lower lips, so most of the time I'll use the, like, 327th object or whatever for the lower lip to show that it's there, like the indent of it. The placement of it does depend on whether you want your character to have full lower lips or thin lower lips, so that's all up to preference. In terms of length, I always have it at 0.05. The width of it, it also depends. As I said, I tend to go for it being smaller now, not really super duper long, but that's all to preference. For the actual lip, I use either 40, 55, 178, or 187 in, like, the facial accessories. I use either one of those for them. The color of it depends on the character. Typically, if you're going for one that isn't like they have lipstick on or something like that, then I would suggest a shade that's darker than the skin tone, but, you know, feels like it would be there or look natural or whatever. If it's a pale character, then I would suggest maybe, like, a pale pinkish color. If they're wearing lipstick, then, you know, do whatever color you want. Now, the last thing for the face is the nose. The placement does vary between the character, and like the nose that I personally use is number 15, and I flip the Y, so it's like upside down, I guess. For the highlight, I use 192, and I have the opacity for it at 100. For like the actual highlight color, I would recommend doing a one that's a shade lighter than whatever skin tone that you choose. If you made like a really pale character, then you can just make the highlight white. Now, for the size of the highlight, it does depend on what type of nose you're trying to give your character, because personally, I like to use the highlight as a way to portray what type of like nose shape or size my characters have. And then the color of the nose, I always make it the outline of the skin color of the character, because when it's like I think they have it as the shadow of like the skin color or whatever, it's pretty faint and I can't really see it, so I always make it whatever outline I have for the character's skin color as like the outline for the nose. Moving on to scars and other marks, I'd really recommend looking at Pinterest if you need ideas for scars, but overall, whenever I make scars, I think of what kind of scar it is, how the scar affects the area that it's in, and then where the scar is located. So, since most scars that cause discoloration, I either have them as like a darker, palish color of the skin tone, or a dark, pale, pinkish color. Some examples for like what I mean. One of them is also he has a scar near his mouth, but you know, in some frames you can see that even when he has his mouth open wide, the scar hasn't moved, and that's because it's a mouth scar that shows, you know, the gums and teeth, so I'm not gonna move it or adjust it since it's basically a part of his mouth. Then, with a scar like Suki's, since it is one that I've kind of imagined dug deep into her skin and she had to get like facial reconstruction surgery there or something like that, I have it to where that eye is slightly lower and has a more pale eye color compared to her normal eye. Then, for Midori, I kind of ran out of facial accessories to use, so I got that kind of spiky looking glasses thing that people were using in like the 2018 emo gacha era. I just took that and adjusted it a lot to make it look like a scar was on his cheek, and then gave it a slightly darker color than his normal skin. For other marks like moles and freckles and stuff, I just use the singular dots for moles, and then if I want to add more, then I just go in and draw them. For freckles, I just use the basic stuff that they have. Then for like things like birthmarks or whatever, like what Asper has, I just like make them whatever color that I want and adjust them to be, I don't know, whatever the fuck I was doing with his. I think I was going for like a Demon Slayer mark type of thing. So yeah, for things like, I guess, eczema and vitiligo, since two of my characters have that, for the eczema, I would recommend getting one of the blushes or something like that, and either making it a sort of pinkish red, because, you know, it causes irritation or whatever, or if you want to go the extra mile, you could do that, and then add one of those eye bag things and have it as like a super white to show like the skin flaking or some shit like that. And then for vitiligo, honestly, since that does depend on the person and how severe the case is, I would look at Inspo pictures, I guess, and then use the facial accessories, like that one thing that looks like they have mud on their face, and then that other thing that people usually use for like blood or something like that. I would use that and adjust it to how you want it to be. For the arms, I would either use the bandages and have it to where like the overall thing is white and then the outline of it is the skin color, or this like one scar thingy that's on like the last page. Moving on to blood, I usually go into ibis paint. I usually go into that and just draw it on there. I also like imagine how the blood would flow or whatever whenever I draw it. Like if they have a nosebleed and it's a light nosebleed, typically I just make it stay on the face. But if it's a heavy nosebleed, then I do make it drip down onto the shirt depending on where it is. For things like blood going on the clothes, I would recommend just drawing it on there normally and then like adjusting the opacity to be slightly lighter, because if it's inside the clothes, then it should look a little light, like it's, you know, inside of the clothes. If it's on the clothes, then, you know, keep it at the normal opacity. And if you want to make it look like the blood is seeping in through the clothes, then start at a lower opacity and then slowly adjust it to a higher opacity until it's like, I guess, looking like it's slightly on the clothes. Now, for the last thing, which is thumbnails, I mainly use CapCut, Ibis Paint, or a light motion in order to make thumbnails. I use CapCut because sometimes I'll need to have the characters in specific places. So I go through there and I basically move the characters in whatever place I want. And then I go into Ibis Paint and like add any extra details, those usually being text or like a light shining. And like for the text, I usually change the opacity to make it like slightly transparent. I use a light motion for the thumbnail sometimes too, because I'll just find a scene that's there, you're like, this is thumbnail worthy, take a screenshot of it, then go into Ibis Paint and like add text or any extra details. Okay, so I just remembered something else that I guess could count as a mark. The chest indent. That's one thing that I use. Most of this depends on what type of clothing the character is wearing and whether, you know, if their body type allows that. Mostly, I either use the teardrop shirt logo or this one choker thing that's in the like neck accessory sections. I've been using that one a lot more. And I just adjust it to like fit whatever type of clothing that they're wearing and to also fit what type of body type they have. So how, like, I guess thick the indent would look based on that body type. So that's the end of the tutorial. Sorry if it's low-key pretty ass and doesn't do a good job of explaining things. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm like a master at doing tutorials and this is the first time I've done this. So yeah, sorry in advance if it sucks ass and isn't very helpful. But yeah, that's the tutorial. Thank you for watching and thank you for requesting it. I hope it's helpful.